Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Marketing in Practice podcast, the podcast where I get to simplify the marketing and the mindset so you, the chiropractor, can increase your income, your impact, and your enjoyment in practice too. Today's episode was a real treat for me. I got to speak with my absolute favourite Instagram, Dr. Lauryn Brunclik. If you're not following Lauryn, then after this episode, then make sure that you go and follow her. The links to her details will be down in the show notes as well. Now, when I'm looking at, in particular, at Lauryn's reels, I often laugh out loud. I marvel at her insight and her wisdom. Now, if you don't know Lauryn, Lauryn is a chiropractor of 12 years. She's a mum, a podcaster, a wife. She's now a superhost on Airbnb. We talk about that a little bit during the episode as well. So she's a chiropractic coach, a course creator, a runner, a Christian, a pizza enthusiast. She's an incredibly busy person as well. Now, today, Lauryn and I talked about her creative process. She shares how she comes up with content, how long it takes, where are the best spots for her to film her videos, what works and what doesn't work. And she also gives us a sneak peek into a fantastic new project that she's releasing sometime in around when this episode is coming out as well. Now, spoiler alert, if you're a chiropractor who's ready for the next thing, maybe you've got a creative project you want to work on, practice is sorted, and you're looking for what's next, then this may well be the thing that you need to check out as well. That's enough from me. Let's go and talk with Lauryn. As always, thanks for what you do. Keep saving lives, folks. Enjoy the episode. Lauryn Brunclik, welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. It should be welcome back. This is my second time.
It should be welcome back. And your first episode was a hit, and I was and have been very much looking forward to seeing you again. I'm a huge fan. I just love your Instagram. I love everything that you do. I was looking on your website again the other day, and another thing that I loved is that your email opt-in form just basically says, want to be friends. And it's so nice. The way, join my newsletter, or people have on there too, but just want to be friends. It's so great. What have you been up to since we chatted last?
Well, we were going to connect this past spring, but I said actually, I just kind of bought an Airbnb off the cuff, and I have 3 weeks to flip this thing and get it on the market. So can we push our interview? So that, definitely that. Really just been rocking practice, being a mom, been doing more speaking this year. It's just the things.
Yeah, it's how's the Airbnb experience been so far for you?
Okay, so I feel like our experience is different than a lot of other people's experience because we live in Northwoods, Wisconsin. Okay, so there's no property manager. So, I feel like a lot of people, when they talk about buying an Airbnb, they think about going to Home Goods and buying pillows and artwork and dishes, and then splitting 70-30 with a property manager. And that has been a little different than our experience. It's been fun, but we have been way more hands on. The first 3 weeks I was cleaning it in between because but in my defense, I thought it would be fun.
Yes,
I was no, I think it'll be fun. It's not fun.
No.
It's not fun at all.
No, I'm surprised that you thought it might be.
Well, I'm a little crazy, and sometimes I also have I have relinquishing control issues. So I wanted to understand what the process was.
Yes.
I wanted to understand what needed to be done. So if I was in a pinch, I could clean it and it wouldn't be scary. I also just thought it'd be relaxing. It's not. It's weird. It's weird cleaning an Airbnb because everybody kept it really clean. So, and I have a kid, I have a house with a dog, a golden retriever, an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. We got crap everywhere. Okay. And dishes, no matter, it's just constant dishes and laundry in our house. You walk into this Airbnb and 9 times out of 10, it would be cleaner before I needed to start cleaning it than my actual house was. So you're dusting things and sanitizing things that are already clean. It's weird. It's very weird. I don't recommend quitting chiropractic to become a Airbnb house cleaner.
Yeah, good. Okay, thank you. Well, I can tick that one
Don't do that.
off now. When you were considering this as an investment strategy, why did you choose something like an Airbnb over just kind of renting it out to somebody else? What were the decisions that went into that?
So you mean a long-term rental versus short-term rental?
Yeah, I guess you have the stability of some person that's going to sign over here in Australia, it's typically a 12-month contract and you don't have to do all those other bits and pieces. But then you have the slightly higher return, or not slightly, but often very high return, but the unpredictability of, the variance of tenants.
Yeah, with short-term rental, you have to deal with more people, and people do suck. I'm not gonna lie, like for the most of them are good, but there's just enough of them that make so we started the whole thing kind of started because I saw a home on a lake that I had always run past that I loved that was on the market. And it's on the lake. And I was like, I've always loved that house. I want to move into that house. And so it really didn't start as an investment situation. It started as like the house I've always liked is on the market. And so then my husband, Kirby, was like, well, I was really planning on instead of buying, like just leveling up our house, buying something that we could enjoy, but that we could financially benefit from. And so that's why we decided to buy a lake home near us that we could block it off for a week here or there in the summer that we could enjoy. We could still enjoy it yet. And also just the amount that you can make on the short-term rental was appealing.
Yeah.
So.
And have you found a property manager now?
No, it's my husband.
Right. Excellent.
Kirby.
And can you trust him?
I mean, I hope so, but he's very techy, but like he's not very good at like mechanical stuff. So like
I love it.
if the water heater goes out, he's like, okay, I can watch YouTube. This is fine.
Yes. And how's his customer service? I know we've been staying in Airbnbs forever and love it. And there's something about that amazing host that's just, here's the coffee shop, do this, go there. Anytime you call them, they're so happy to hear from you. It really makes the experience there too. Is Kirby one of those, or is that your role?
Definitely. So we actually both share. So like it's one account, but like either I'm responding to it first or him. So it is funny because if you read through the host responses, you could definitely tell which ones are for me because they're like exclamation mark. And but no, yeah, we tag team that, although it was really weird. So here's the other thing they don't tell you about Airbnb. I know this is an Airbnb podcast, right?
Of course it is. Yeah, this is part of a new thing that I'm doing. So absolutely. Yeah.
So as soon as we got involved in all of these Facebook Airbnb groups, like host page groups. So before we even started hosting, I'm seeing just daily these like scams, these terrible things that are happening to hosts, and like people being like, here's how you should respond. Oh, don't do that. It sounds like they're scamming you. So like our fourth person, we were pretty sure was a weird scam. But like it puts you on guard of like what is going on. So the other day, a couple weeks ago, I get a text from a number to my phone. Like I'm seeing patients and a text from a real cell phone number comes to mind. I need the code to get in. It's raining and I'm at the Airbnb. And like all of the stuff is supposed to be through the Airbnb app. And I'm like, well, first of all, I look out my window. The place is 20 minutes away. It is sunshine where I'm at. And I'm like, oh my God, someone's trying to break into our Airbnb. It ended up being fine. It was not a scam, but it's just weird. You're in the middle of patients and you're like, this is why people have property managers.
Makes sense. Well, that's now shifting back onto something a little more marketing related. Your Instagram reels have gone from great to even better. Where do you come up with all these wonderful ideas? Is there a process that you go through? Let me first say this to our listeners. If you're not following Lauryn, then there'll be links in the show notes. We'll do all of that at the end there. Just do this now. Your humor is so wonderful, but also your ability to capture some of those challenges that we have as chiropractors and see the funny side of them too. It's one of my joys of Instagram. So where does all this wonderful stuff come from?
It probably comes from the things I can't say to patients
Yes.
when that stuff comes up. So, I'm still very active in my practice. And so I am just in it. And so there are these just things that happen, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, are you serious? I think my brain just views things in a funny way. Like, I'm a very cynical person. So like in my brain, I've got like all this sarcasm and wit, or like that wants to come out. So, like yesterday I had a patient, her daughter laid down and she said, "Careful, my arm's sore. I just got my shot." And like, I just looked at my associate and just like all the things that were going through my brain of what I wanted to say. And I'm just like, no, 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 not going to say any of that out loud. So I think that's kind of what it is during practice, I'm really forced to be more professional and say the right things. And then I get to have this like behind the scenes humor with other chiropractors, but from a learning experience.
Do any of your patients follow your account? Do they get on it?
Yes.
And yes, that's one of my thoughts there too. I went, oh, like hilarious for us as chiropractors. But I'm like, I wonder how many of Lauryn's patients follow this as well. And what do they say?
So usually, to date, I have not had a single patient break up with me because of She Slays the Day. That it's not to say it hasn't happened. But most of the people who I find out follow me or listen to the podcast, they identify, because a lot of what I talk about are, patients who are self-adjusting themselves, or like talk about coming when they want, or so most of the patients who follow are like the people who come weekly. They know what I believe in chiropractic, and they're doing that, so they feel kind of almost on the inside with me.
From a point of view, I mean, it almost draws a real line in the sand. And one of those things that we often kind of talk about in building a tribe is that you have to know who the enemy is, for lack of a better word, there too. And it does that nicely. And none of what you say is ever mean or nasty or malicious or anything like that. And so I don't think it would be, but if you were one of those patients that did happen to manage your health in that way, it probably helps to make it self-selective as well, which is not a bad thing as well. Tell me a little bit about the process when you have an idea that is, or that would be a great idea, because you match it so beautifully with text and the whole thing through there too. Is there a bit of a workflow that you go through? Do you go looking for what's kind of trending at the moment? Do you save things?
Yes. So there's a couple different avenues. So like I don't have like one very rigid. So sometimes I have a really good idea. I had an interaction that happened that I was like, oh, it would be really funny if I had like somebody play the patient, and this was the scenario. And then I will go to Reels just looking for an audio that I can make work. Other times there will be an audio that is just so funny, like it makes me laugh out loud.
Yes.
So, and it has nothing to do. So I don't follow I shouldn't say that. I follow mostly chiropractors, but my Reels, if I'm getting inspiration, it is from very non-chiropractors. Because it's just, a lot of chiropractors are making content for their patients. And so it doesn't. So I'm just looking for like audio that if it makes me laugh out loud, I know I'm going to use this. I just haven't figured out how to do it. If I have like the time and like I feel like making something right now, I will record it and just download it and save it in drafts. I've learned that it's worth me sitting. So like if I'm like, okay, I don't have an idea, but I'm trying to force it a little bit. I've learned that it's worth it sitting in my drafts for 24 hours as I really like hammer the exact, like when comedy is is not like frivolous, right? Like comedians and their process, not that I'm comparing myself to a comedian, but
No,
like,
it's wonderful. I think you don't underplay it. Like it certainly matches my sense of humor. So let's just say that I'm happy to refer to you as
okay. You think I'm
wonderful.
funny? I at least have one hand.
Yeah. Well, you've got a lot more than one. I know that, but yes. Yeah.
So yeah, it's I can tell the difference in how a reel performs if I just kind of throw it up like without thinking too much about the exact words or like the exact scenario versus like, all right, I have the reel, it's funny audio, I know I'm going to use it somehow, and then like sometime on a run or like then just the scenario will be like, yes, that's exactly what it is. And I really try to focus on as little words as possible. So like even when I have the exact scenario, I'll run it by Kirby of like, is there an easier way to say this? Like, I don't like the text back and forth being super like having to read. And so like being able to get across something very simply, but exactly to the point and like just the exact right word. Like, is this word funnier or is that word funnier? Is it funnier if they do this? And facial expressions. I'm just an expressive person. Like,
yes. Yeah, you do that so beautifully. I remember being amazed the first time, because as a child growing up, my folks used to like to go and see, my mum in particular, to go and see comedians. And if appropriate, then I would be able to come along as well. And then I was amazed to realize that wasn't all off the cuff. I thought it was a comedian just standing up there, not knowing that when they did the show the next night, that they did the same thing word for word. And there's something magical. It's not magical, but it makes sense that the beautiful work that you do isn't just off the cuff, that there is work that's gone into it that's incredibly deliberate. But to make it look so natural is a great skill that you have. And just a reminder that it's okay to work really hard at things. Like if you want to be good, like that's literally what it takes.
Yeah. So like also like some of the other like smaller things that I've noticed is like the more comfortable I can be with a minimal filter, the better. So like if I have hair and makeup done, I won't use any filter. If I'm like, whoa, got from the gym, I might use like a very, very subtle one. But like 6 months ago, a year ago, there were some really heavy filters that were really common. And now it like the reels that tend to go viral and things like that perform really well on Instagram, like people are just kind of sick of those really heavy filters where it's like their face is like Botoxed and like a baby and things like that. So I try and go like my favorite filter to use now is just called the subtle filter. And so if I'm not wearing makeup, that's what I'll use. Otherwise, I will use no filter. And then really prioritizing that lighting, the angle of where the phone is. And like just a clear picture that is really, and of course I've done a lip sync because I have a terrible memory. So like some of the longer lip syncs, I'll record like 7-8 times and it needs to be on, like, so just I'll delete it, redo it.
In terms of a workflow with that too, if you're making the video, I mean, obviously the lip syncs and stuff like that are done inside the Instagram app itself because that makes that kind of easy. But are the other videos, are you using the Instagram app to kind of edit as a workflow, or do you do that outside of the app?
So the app has gotten, so it depends. Most of the time I do it in the app because a lot of my reels are easy enough to do that. And Instagram has gotten better that it's okay. Like I still don't feel safe. So I'm constantly downloading my progress. So if I have like 4 cut shots that are going to happen in a reel, if I nail the first one, I'll download that.
Yes.
And then when I add the second one, if I'm like, okay, half of this reel is done and it's perfect, I download that. When all of the video is done, I download it completed before I start putting any words on it, because Instagram, that's the number one thing I'll still see is that it will mess up the words if you like have written out the sentence and then you decide to start playing with like font positions or the font in general or the color. and there's just certain fonts within Instagram that like 9 times out of 10 when I post, I don't know why it hates me and it messes up the word. So like I've really stuck to like certain fonts. Yeah, I know if I start like editing and going back, I just delete it and start over, not just the words. But I'm downloading multiple times and yeah.
If you have an idea that's relatively straightforward, from inspiration through to post time, what is the turnaround for that?
5 minutes.
Yeah, okay. It can be as quick as that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, if I have, because even now, so occasionally I like to so I know that they say that like your Instagram bio page, the aesthetic doesn't matter. I don't know. I still like kind of breaking it up in there. And so even now, if I do choose to do a cover photo, I'm making it in Insta stories and downloading it and using it as a cover photo. So I've even streamlined. I used to go into Canva to make this cover photo, download it and all of that. I'm like, no, it's not necessary. It's not necessary at all. So
and so is there a cover photo? And so for just to bring some of our listeners up to speed, whenever you're posting a reel or any video on Instagram, it's going to prompt you to what do you want the cover photo to be, and this will be what shows up inside the profile grid there as well. And it makes a big difference in terms of what that cover photo is. What do you find works best when you're wanting to do that? What are you looking for?
I like enough words that either hooks the person in,
yes,
or gives them an idea of the topic I'm going to talk on. So now this is like, depending on when this airs, literally Instagram is kind of changing this now. So it used to be that if I were putting words on the screen in the Instagram app and I went straight through to post, if I wanted to choose like a frame from that video, even though the words were on there, it wouldn't show the words in the cover photo.
Okay.
It would just show the video behind. So it used to be, and I still do this because that if I wanted the words to be on the cover photo, I would download the entire reel with the words. Yes. That also gave me another opportunity. So then I would re-upload the reel with words, attach the audio a second time, or to like the new reel. The words are like transposed. So at this point, I can check that they didn't get all messed up or stretched out or anything like that. And I will post it, and like the audio on top of that video, or like the text on top of the video is there. So then when I choose to cover photo, the text would be there. Yes. I think Instagram is fixing that now, where like last week when I went to post one, it gave me the option to allow Instagram to choose the cover photo for me. And then it also used to not let you, so they still don't let you move it up and down. So if I just posted something without thinking too much about the cover photo,
yes,
when I go to edit the cover photo, it will now let me choose a different cover photo, like along like a different frame, but it still doesn't let you go up and down. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that about the text, because I've always been so scared of the Instagram editing app, and that I've always done it all outside. And so therefore my text has already been sort of burnt in there as well. But maybe I might have to go back and see if my relationship with it has improved.
No, I don't know. I think you're right. Just let it off app.
Yeah, it's been tricky.
It's an abusive relationship.
It's very much, and I don't want a codependent one with the Instagram editor, so I'm trying to keep away from it too. So, how when I'm speaking with chiropractors, there's two things that in terms of barriers that I hear from them. One is a lack of time to be able to do this, and the second is a lack of confidence to put themselves out there, for lack of a better term. You must get people asking you about these all the time. So you've got Airbnbs, dogs, husbands, 2 kids, all those things. They're 2 associates, and you're still making this wonderful content. How do you fit it in? How do you manage your time for this?
So I only do my She Slays social media. I don't do my clinic social media. Now, if I didn't have She Slays, I would do my clinic social media. So I And then I do a terrible job at the Airbnb social media. Like wouldn't recommend following that as like a guideline. So I really pick one. She Slays also isn't super big on Facebook. It's really just anything cross-posted, which in reality, Facebook is a different beast than Instagram. So just kind of posting from Instagram automatically over to Facebook doesn't perform well.
No.
So I've really picked, and our clinic has kind of done that, but with Facebook, where like they prioritize Facebook because that's what works in our area. We also keep up our Instagram in the event that there's a purge and everyone goes from Facebook to Instagram, but we really focus on creating the quality content for the one place that produces for us. So for me, Instagram produces for the podcast. My media assistant just told me as we're launching the program, she's like, you really should start bare minimum posting things like your reels over to TikTok. And I'm like, oh, do I have to? Like, she's like, yes, you do. So, but even then it's like, so Facebook is for that. And then I have somebody else managing the clinic because I don't feel like I have the bandwidth to do two different social medias.
Yes.
And not burn out. Like I like it from a creative standpoint. I also have, as far as the confidence goes, I had to get over hearing my voice. That's a big thing is people like, although most of my stuff on Instagram isn't my own voice anyways, but like, I had to get over hearing my own voice 185 episodes ago, so that is gone. And I don't rewatch stuff. Like really, I post it and forget it. Even when I used to do coffee chats on Friday on Facebook Live for our clinic, I would show up in a top knot and like sweatshirt, and those would perform great, really great. So it's nice that, I've been showing up to the camera for long enough that I know like, oh, that actually does really well when I show up that way. One thing that never performs well is bad lighting, but like sweatshirt and tie, that can work really well. So that's given me the confidence of just the time or the like over time, just sharing loads and loads of content and being like, that worked, that didn't work. And not stressing too much about that didn't work.
I'm really kind of doubling down when I'm talking with people now, because the idea like I lack confidence, I don't feel good on camera, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, well, why would you expect to straight away? Like, were you good at adjusting right away? Could you ride a bike right away? Like what? Like many things. This is a skill, and I promise you can develop it. Like you absolutely can. It's not rocket science or brain surgery. It's neither of those things there, but it will take some repetition. But what you have going for you, and you've touched on this a couple of times, because I'm certain the secret weapon in all of this is authenticity. And I think that's why you have done so well. I don't know, but I get the sense that there's probably not a lot of difference in Lauryn, how she shows up with her reels to how like front and behind stage, that this lovely, vivacious, fun person through there too, of ups and downs and passion, all that kind of stuff there too. And so authenticity is where it's at, hence the less filters, the top knot, the sweatshirt, all that kind of stuff there too. So just be you, and most people are very good at that.
Oh, absolutely. It's like, I'm not against being sarcastic or dancing or whatever, but if my patients saw that, they wouldn't go, whoa, who is that personality? Like, even though I say I keep a lot of stuff in my head, believe me, I don't think I do as good of a job as I think I do in the clinic. So when people see me on video, they're like, oh yeah, that's Lauryn. That is her. And so like, that authenticity, that's where it comes from, is just being truly who you are in front of your patients there and not trying to be someone else.
Yeah, I love it. There's an audience for everybody. You have a new project that you have been whittling away at for the last 3 years that you're releasing in December. Tell me all about that. Tell me about the journey that's led to this.
Yeah. So I I would say it really started when I was about 5 years into practice. So
Mm.
gosh, that's like 7 years ago now. There was kind of this, I had built a practice, you start and I was like, okay, I'm going to build a practice this big. And then I got to that and I was like, okay, I want to build a practice this big. And so I kind of went through the first 5 years of my career as a chiropractor, just building a little bigger, building a little bigger. And that was exciting to me to, now I'm going to go from 200 to 400 people a week. Now I'm going to go from 400 to 500. I'm going to bring on another associate. I'm going to start another clinic. And at a certain point, I kind of stopped growing. I really
Mm.
plateaued. And I was like, yeah, I want more. Sure, I do. Yeah. But it wasn't coming from this really authentic space inside of me. And I realized that I was kind of bored.
Mm.
Um, I thought I was burnt out. Now that I look back, I was bored. But
Yeah.
really, I think this is a big thing that happens is we have created a space where if you love chiropractic, it's impossible for you to be bored. There's something wrong with you.
Yes.
Like you're not a real chiropractor if you're bored. It's changing lives every day. Like this is the most
Yeah.
like, and I'm not even saying this tongue in cheek. Like
No.
chiropractic is amazing. I see miracles, and I'm like, yeah, had 4 miracles before lunch. Boring.
Yeah.
So like, you weren't allowed to say that. So I felt like I was burnt out. So, I started to not exit stage left, but I started to get some of my time back. So instead of working full time, was staffed appropriately. That I was like, I'm going to take a couple shifts off and I am going to start this side project. And so I started She Slays the Day. And that was like She Slays was from being bored and being on runs and thinking about like, I've told my listeners before that before starting the podcast, I had come home from runs with like 5 different ideas before that. We were going to start, ironically, like a bed and breakfast. That was like years ago.
Yeah.
But that idea did come. I came home like, what if we do this? What if they do this? Just all these different ideas. And like, my husband would never, he wouldn't say no, but he would just kind of like test it. Like, how kind of solid is this idea? How serious are you about it? Like, was it going to bring more purpose to me or was it going to just continue to the burnout?
Mm.
And so that's how She Slays the Day started, as I finally was like, boom, that's what I want to do. And so for the last 3.5 years, having basically 2 businesses, it's been figuring out how to, so believe it, this is going to sound like a shock to you. I built a very personality based practice.
Yes.
I know.
Shock horror.
Um, I know. So my team loved having me in practice. My
Mm.
patient loved having me in practice. So, and this, I don't know. I actually thought I came across breezy. I learned I don't. I was also a control freak. So
Mm.
like I built the practice. How you respond to situations was not like laissez-faire, like, and most successful
Mm.
chiropractors have done that. Like they're
Yes.
not, they're very strict about their systems and procedures and how they want things done. And so as I wanted to start exiting stage left just a little bit, I realized that in order for me to get my time back, I was starting to pull my energy with me. And the energy of my entire staff would go down. They didn't love when I wasn't in practice. They couldn't handle like some systems and procedures things because I hadn't put into clarification. Like our patients were missing me. And so I had to figure out how to give up a lot of this control
Mm.
in a way that I felt controlling about, how to delegate, how to empower my employees to be like, can you just go get out of here, what are you doing type of thing.
Mm.
How to bring them in to make them feel responsible without, because I can't compete. Some of our employees are amazing. I can't compete with some of the salaries that they could go get in town. Like this is not a common thing. And so like having to figure out how to empower them with more work, so they're more invested in the mission and vision. Like it has been a 3.5 years of mistakes, recovering for those mistakes, going, oh, I wish I'd have done that, and doing some things right. But like really now I'm at a place where I work 4 shifts a week, 1 full day and 2 half days. And the rest of the time is me working on the podcast, working on other ideas, like, and really just being able to create. And that's what I realized is like, I wasn't burnt out. I just like creating things. I like solving problems. And when your practice gets to a certain point, you're kind of like, I don't know, I did a good job building this, and now it's just not stimulating my creativity in my brain as much as it used to.
I think if you're I'd be interested if you found this. The challenge for me was so much of my success early in practice was chiropractic was not what I did, it was who I was. And it seemed to me that taking on that identity, that, that was part of what gave me the enthusiasm, the ongoing passion. So when I wanted to transition into the work I'm doing now, I felt this enormous sense of guilt to the profession. It sounds so arrogant when I say it out loud. It's like, how silly for you to say that. But it's like, and I had fulfilled roles in terms of across in education, I don't know, associations, all those type of things too. And so the 10 years it took me to transition into the work I'm doing now was all dealing with that stuff mostly. Did you experience any of that?
Oh, yeah. Up until this program, I haven't said the words up until talking about this program that like I was bored.
Yeah.
Because again, like you're not, I think part of the problem is that within chiropractic, and it's changing. We have more people who are graduating and becoming associates, is that so many people were pushed into starting a practice. And again, they might be great at running a practice, but just because you own, God, I hope I don't offend a bunch of people when I say this. Just because you own your practice and you are the boss does not mean you are an entrepreneur.
No.
You own your business and you may love your business, but I think there are some people that have this entrepreneurness. It does not make them better at all. It just makes them wired a little different, that they're kind of like, they're full of ideas, and creating a practice was great. They love chiropractic. That's why they chose it as their first love, but they've got lots of hobbies and lots of interests and lots of ideas. And they have this spirit of an entrepreneur. And so they want to be able to continue to be a chiropractor, but they really want to be a chiropreneur. They want to start looking at having an impact through a podcast, through a course. They're thinking about like, well, when I'm like 50, I want to be able to like have my practice and also be working remotely. That's the other hard part about chiropractic, is it's so by the hour. You must be there. And we want freedom. Like there's just like, I want freedom. I want to be able to make money, not in my practice. I want to be able to be down in Florida in winter, not Wisconsin, and making money.
There was, when we were chatting back and forwards, messaging for this, you used a term that I first heard from Marie Forleo, this idea of multi-passionate person there too. And when she said that, when I first read Marie to say that too, it took a real weight off my shoulders, because it's how I can't do one thing. I'm stimulated by many different things, and I've always to be pigeonholed into one corner there too. That's, but there's often a sense of guilt that comes along for that too, particularly if our listeners already have, as you did, like a really successful, thriving practice. And then like, shouldn't this be enough for me as well? And it's okay to want to do lots of things. In fact, encouraged for you if that's the desire as well. What are the things in the course that you're going to be teaching and helping somebody touch base with what that is inside them? What are sort of things that you're going to be teaching them throughout this course?
So over the course of 10 weeks, the first 8 weeks are really meant around stabilizing your cash cow, is kind of the only way to put it, of like, listen, if you are a candidate for this program, you are privileged to be thinking about like, or not have money and more money for paying your bills as your number one priority.
Yeah.
Honestly, I kind of compare the chiropractor's journey in this scenario to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yep.
Like this chiropractor is like, and they aren't necessarily debt-free. Maybe they are, but they're like, I'm comfortable. The smarter thing would probably be like to just keep growing your practice. Like growing your practice another 5 to 10% would be much more fruitful financially. So we don't want to take advantage of that because I've done that wrong. I've exited, brought back my time and energy a little too hastily, and I've seen turnover at my clinic. I've seen decreased numbers, and then you have to go pour in, and then it honestly just continues to fuck with your brain.
Yes.
That if you leave, it will die.
Yeah.
And that's not true. You just did it wrong the first time.
Yeah.
As you didn't have the systems in place to step back. And, so a lot of the first 8 weeks are going to be talking about like really what you did that was unique here, because not every chiropractor has this benefit, this freedom to do this. So like, what is your kind of like secret sauce that made your chiropractic clinic unique? Because those strengths that you have, you're going to bring into your next adventure as well. It's going to be kind of like a time warp where you just get to fast forward and go like, this is what I do well. Thus the She Slays, right? Like She Slays took off because I realized this is why my practice does well. I'm going to take that, not reinvent the wheel, and just insert it there. So the first 8 weeks are talking through team systems, KPIs. What is being a CEO? Like, all right, so a lot of us go like, okay, I want to stop working in my practice and I want to start working on my practice. Most chiropractors who are the owner are working on their practice already. They're doing payroll. They're working on their practice an exhausting amount. This is teaching them how to work over their practice.
Yes.
People think like, oh, I'm going to take my admin is in the CEO shift. No. There's an admin shift. That's what you were doing. You were doing payroll. You were making marketing posts. You were doing this. The difference of stepping into the leader, the CEO, it does allow you to get a lot of your energy back. It's almost like, I almost feel guilty how little I have to do to keep the wheels turning there now. Like really, I've learned the systems in the practice. So if you kind of view like you've got your marketing, you've got your systems and procedures, you've got retention, you've got all these different plates that like the E-Myth chiropractor talks about, right? And really, I've learned how to have key leaders in my practice that have the plate, are balancing the plate, and I just have to kind of come in and just add a little momentum to keep them going. But what I do is going to be different than every other chiropractor. And so it's not teaching what I did. It's helping them discover, like, what did you do? Like, how do you implement this? Where are you at? And that's the first 8 weeks. The final 2 weeks, we talk about the fun stuff that they want to. Like, all right, how are you going to balance the second job? What does that look like? And I'm going to bring in experts. So if I have someone who's like, yeah, okay, so now can we talk about like my podcast that I want to, or the course? And then the final 2 weeks is like, all right, let's talk about building a course. Let's talk about building a podcast. Let's talk about starting an Airbnb, and actually the last 2 weeks are called the launch pad, where we talk about like, all right, we stabilized. Now let's get you your next action steps for your next adventure.
It's so lovely to hear. You often hear this advice of, burn the ships. There's that old kind of metaphor when the Spanish were going to battle. The only way out of here is for us to win the battle because the ships have been burnt. And I see chiropractors do that when they're taking on a second passion project. They're just like, yeah, don't worry about the other one. I'm leaping all into this next. And then all of a sudden, when you don't have the cash flow and things crash behind you, I love that as an approach. What if somebody's listening to this that doesn't necessarily want to start another project, but they would love the idea of being able to just pull back from the practice so they can play golf, garden, hang out with their kids? They just want that predictability in the practice and for the pressure to be taken off them. Would your course be good for them? Or is this really for somebody that only wants to start another project?
So yes, it would, but
yeah,
I think that really the people who are in this program, where the magic is going to continue to come from is that we're all extremely like-minded. So
Mm.
we're only accepting up to 24. We'll have like 2 or 3 small groups depending on the size. And half of it is me educating. The other half is like coming together and talking at this level. And so like really there's a personality type. Are you familiar with human design?
No.
Oh, you should look into it. So like they're a bunch of manifesting generators is what it is. It's like
Yes.
people who are just full of this. And so if I had to say like for the person who really just wants to pull back to spend more time with the family, there are wonderful programs that have already been created
Mm.
within chiropractic on how to be a part-time chiropractor, like just work 20 hours a week.
Mm.
Or, like there are really great programs that have already been created. This is very specific to like, because there is a part of like when you have let's just call it a second job, a side
Mm.
hustle. I don't know what
Yeah, yeah.
you're pursuing your next adventure. You have to be very conscious of how you do that with your team. So a lot of what makes this unique is making your team not feel abandoned
Yes,
and
great
like
point.
making sure that you are able to juggle jumping from one business to another without sacrificing your relationships. And that's a big part of this, your health and your relationships. The person who's like, oh no, I just want to work 20 hours a week, they don't struggle, or I imagine that they don't need to be like, okay, but how are you going to make sure your relationship with your partner stays good now that you just doubled your workload? How are you going to make sure your mental health is good because you just doubled your workload? They took a ton of pressure off. So
Yeah. What if I'm listening to this now or watching and I know there's something else I want to do, but I just don't know what it is? Will this help to lay the foundations for that? Or I
I
feel
think
something, or I've
so.
got a bunch of
Yeah.
different ideas.
Yes. Yes. If you are someone who's like, I have a lot of ideas, but I'm not really sure which one, a big part is teaching you to create your own filter.
Mm.
A lot of times someone who has a lot of ideas has a carnage in their background over the last 10 years of planes that they've launched that were like, oh, well, that didn't work out. So ideas people but that tends to weigh on them heavily.
Yes.
It tends to be like, create fear of like, oh, but last time I did it, that didn't work out. They're embarrassed by that. They don't really know. So this would be helpful because it's giving someone their unique framework as to like looking at what makes them unique, what filter do they need to put things through, because we don't want you to just launch a bunch of ideas and burn out. Like this is about realizing that you are a chiropreneur. Like you
Mm.
love to create, but you don't have endless resources. And so going like, all right, take these next step wisely. Think about this, running it through the checklist of like, does this fit with what you're envisioning? Does this fit with your current reality of life? Are you staffed appropriately? All of that.
Yeah. Tell me about human design. Yeah, I was intrigued by that. I think last time we spoke a little Enneagram stuff. But tell me about
Enneagram is still my first love.
Right. Okay. Okay. But being
Yeah.
that you're multi-passionate, human design can sneak in there as well.
Yeah. So, okay, this is totally my personality. I haven't taken the official test of human design. I just saw an article or like somebody posted something. It came up like multiple times while I was interviewing people where they said like, well, I'm a manifesting generator. I'm a man. And I was like, this term keeps coming up.
Right.
And so I looked it up, and a manifesting generator is basically, it's what Marie Forleo is talking about. They're multi-passionate. They can often be perceived as not being able to multitask, being very scatterbrained, ADHD, but really it's just their brain is just generating, they react to their environment very quickly with like this gut feeling. So they're very passionate and full of ideas, and they're about like 32% of the population apparently.
Got it. Well, it looks like I've got some,
Yeah, so I
excuse me.
don't know the other design types because I was like, that's me, nailed it. I don't need to know anything about anybody else.
Well, it seems that perfect because it's like, I'm onto it. I've learned it next. I don't need to learn the whole kind of thing there too. So that sounds
I don't need
perfect.
to know what anybody else is. I got mine. I'm good.
Yeah. I'm I'm thrilled for you, Lauren. I can't wait to see how this unfolds. The work that you do that I have been able to witness is brilliant. And it doesn't surprise me the depth of thought that goes into your reels. And I know the depth of thought that will go into this. And, I would encourage anybody that's watching and listening to this, that if your heart is opening up and calling with this too, then follow through. So how do people find out more about the course? When does it launch? How do they apply for a spot?
So it will be available to the wait list from December 2nd to December 4th. So the wait list will get the exclusive bottom price, obviously. So then December 4th is when we'll start like advertising, going public. And it will start with a phone call with me because honestly, like I said, it is a small group. This is the first time we're doing it. And so maybe in the future we can allow more people, but really I want to be intimately involved with every single person, helping transition them, because this is meaningful stuff. This is their base, this is their clinic. I don't want them to fuck it up. So I really want to make sure that I am doing them justice and being really, really involved. So we're keeping it small. But there'll be a phone call, just a small phone call to make sure, like, are they right? Because I also don't want any Debbie Downers in the program. Nobody wants that. I'll be like, listen, you're not a manifesting generator. Get out of my club. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
No, exclusive.
I'll make it seem like it's their idea.
Yeah.
No, honestly, we're going to hit the ground running. So this isn't for, this isn't necessarily for someone who doesn't have, maybe they desperately need an associate, but like really they probably have at least one associate. They might need a second one. They might still need to hire more or things like that. But like this is not for the startup. This is for somebody who's like, no, I don't need you how to teach me how to like do a day one. We're not like, basically you are at a certain level of success in your practice where you're like, I've done the programs. I'm very confident in my new patient phone call and things like that. I feel good. Now, this is what I need. So we're really going to jump into that. So if I had someone who was like going to be asking questions about like marketing calendars and things like that, I'd be like, oh, there are great programs. This one's not going to answer those questions.
Yeah, I love it. That's nice. And then to get on the wait list for that, where's the best spot for them to go?
I will have a link for you. So the link will be included in this, I guess.
Well, we'll have it in the show notes, folks. You won't remember
in the
it
show
anyway,
notes.
So it'll be there. Well, I'm thrilled what is coming next. I can't wait to kind of witness and see what's happening there too. Thank you for just all that you do, and the light and the humor that you bring to Instagram, and then the depth of thought that you bring to the work that you do with this as well. I wish you all the best with it. I'm certain it'll be a wonderful success as well. Thanks for chatting, and I look forward to perhaps a round 3 next year to see how that first class goes.
Sounds good. Maybe I'll have a property manager by then too.
Yes.
I'll probably have started like 4 more businesses. Let's be honest.
Yes. Or maybe you need to start a property manager business. That's what you need to do. There's a hole in the market there. So
I started a boat business. So
Really?
like after the Airbnb, we started a boat business because we realized the lake we were on doesn't rent boats. So yeah, too many businesses.
Love it. I love it. You're definitely a manifesting generator there too. Lauren, thank you for being so goddamn wonderful. I look forward to chatting again real soon.
Thank you so much.
If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching Program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.